Welcome to the Builders of Authority podcast, a show committed to helping you build authority for your brand. In the realm of business and personal branding, authority stands as a cornerstone. Authority isn't built overnight, it's built over time. So join us as we build something remarkable together. And now, here's your host, Adam McChesney.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Builders of Authority podcast. Our title sponsor for the podcast is Go High Level. GHL is the all-in-one platform, first ever, that gives you the tools, support, and resources you need to succeed and crush your marketing goals. Personally, I have used this software since 2020, and it's been a game changer for my business and our clients. If you are looking to level up your CRM and marketing game, this is the platform to use. You can find a link for a free 30-day trial with tons of Builders of Authority bonuses in the show notes. So take advantage of the opportunity to adopt this amazing software and grow your business. Quick reminder before we hop into today's episode that we are continuing to grow our Builders of Authority community online. BOA is committed to helping you become the authority in your industry with personal branding. We have our free Facebook group that you can join by either clicking the link in the show notes or typing in Builders of Authority in the search bar on Facebook. In that group, there's daily content, weekly live trainings, and much more. We also have our mastermind, which includes a private Facebook group, live weekly trainings and sessions, access to our personal branding course, and more. Reach out to us at buildauthority.co or send me a DM on social media to have a conversation. Today, we are doing another in-person episode live at Half Coast Studios here in St. Louis. It's going to be awesome. Other than my dad, I don't think I've actually known anyone longer than today's guest that I've actually had on my podcast before, because even my younger brother as well wasn't born until I was in like the 6th grade. So we grew up playing baseball against each other from a very young age, and it was always a good battle. Definitely one of the biggest rivalries I think we had growing up, at least in my team's point of view. Although we never really talked that much other than playing baseball. We had been connected on Facebook for years, and over the past year or so really started to support one another with our different ventures, and that led to him coming to BOA Live. After BOA Live, he decided to join our mastermind at the event, and I'm just super excited to have him in the group, but more importantly here with us today. My guest today is Blake Elsner. He is the vice president of Elsner Team Realty here in St. Louis and a third-generation realtor in his family. Blake, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Adam. I appreciate you having me. I can't even believe I'm sitting here looking at you.
I know,
it's
man.
awesome. I mean, yeah, thinking about baseball days and we're sitting on the diamond, like doing stuff like that.
Crazy.
And now here we are talking to each other on a podcast about life.
Who would have thought?
Yeah, on Slurpee Day.
Yeah, on Slurpee Day, man. What a day. What a day to be alive. What a day to be, man. Well, I'm super excited to have you. Why don't you give the audience just a quick rundown on like who Blake is?
Yeah, so Blake, he's a third-generation realtor. I got about 200 million in sales of transactions that I've been a part of over the past, I think I told somebody 7 years, but it's been about 9 years. I joke it's gone so fast.
Yeah.
You can't keep up. But yeah, no, I followed in the footsteps of my father, who's been an excellent role model. He's built a heck of a dynasty, and now I'm taking that over. All of our business is built basically on referral, word of mouth, stuff like that. People trust us. We got a lot of value.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where we start, and people just kind of run from it with that,
Absolutely. So growing up, were you like, hey, this is what I'm going to do? Or did you, I mean, I know you went to college, but did you have I don't know if I'm going to do this?
I never thought I was going to be in real estate, to be honest. I listened to my dad talk about it all day long. He'd be on coaching third base or in the car. I'm like, I can't listen to the radio. I can't do anything. I'm like, he's on the phone 24/7. I'm listening to inspections. I'm listening to surveys. I'm listening to contracts. I'm listening to, loan talk. Everything you can imagine is just filtering into my brain. I'm with him all the time. And, I'm basically working with him as I'm growing up too. So I'm like, I do not want to do this. This is a lot of work. He doesn't stop, puts us to bed. He goes back to work. But my dad's owned a restaurant, and he did own a restaurant when he was 18. So he's always worked. So I've kind of always had that knack for hey, you got to put, he always jokes, if you're the last one at the dinner table, you might not eat. That was kind of his thing. So he's, some of those beliefs I've had to kind of twist and whatnot. But yeah, no, I didn't want to go into real estate. I went to school for criminal justice. I wanted to actually be a police officer. That was kind of my big thing. So I have a criminal justice degree. I unfortunately was like, hey, there's a cap in that.
Mm-hmm.
So it was hard for me to go, hey, I know where I'm going to top out at. And
Yeah.
it's going to be hard to get there
Mm-hmm.
when I could go into sales and make that my first year and just keep going up, 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 up. And there's no limit, right? So that's what sold me. And I'm like, man, if my dad can do this, I can do this, right? Like it's just one of those things. I'm like, he barely graduated high school, but he is a business mentality individual. The one thing though that we've all worked on, or we're all trying to work on, is basically, right here, as I joke. You might not hear it on the podcast, but I put my hand in my mind and I bring it down to my heart, because I got to keep everything in line. Because if that's not aligned, nothing else will be.
Yeah. Well, and the reason why I asked is so like my dad was or still is an attorney, and like I knew from a very early stage, I'm like, yeah, I'm not doing it. And my dad was like, yeah, don't do this, right? So it's funny that I always enjoy like people that did get into the family business of like, hey, did you know it from an early age, or what was that process like? So did you graduate college and then go right into real estate full time?
Yeah, so I graduated college, and I like still to the day where I graduated, I'm walking, getting your fake diploma, just a binder with nothing in it, and I'm like, yeah, all right, what academy am I going to go to? I did 2 internships at 2 law offices. One, Bukowski, she's an awesome lawyer, she's in Columbia, and Montgomery's a personal injury lawyer, he's also in Columbia, Missouri, which we're Mizzou. I went to Columbia College. But
I forgot you went
there. I went to Columbia College. You went to Columbia College. That's right. We totally forgot about that. I know. Look at that.
About that.
Gosh, small world. But yeah, when we were there, actually, they came. I think they were like 32-0 in basketball one of those years.
Yeah, they were good.
And something like that. But yeah, no. So studying criminal justice and then going, hey, I can't make a certain amount of money, or can't top out, or can't keep going. Kind of caught me into a spot where I'm like, I love people. I love helping people. I'm a people pleaser, as I joke, a recovering people pleaser. There's good parts to that and there's bad parts to that. But I wanted to still help people.
Yeah.
So I'm like, how can I help people? Well, I can still secure their future in sales, in real estate, and that's how I'm going to help people. So that's kind of what I've done. And as people start to cycle back through their houses, what's really drives me, not only just the securing the future part, is you get to see these statements, like these closing. Like I'm like, that's awesome. Like I sold them this for this. Here we are 4 years later, they're selling it for X, and I get to see what they get to bring home. And that's what I'm like, that's awesome. Because now they get to take that, put it into a savings account, go buy a bigger house. There's so many driving vehicles with real estate and that equity that you can do with it. It's like, even you don't even have to sell. I say, just having real estate in general, people don't realize, like, a lot of kids went through high school, like you and I, parents, they pulled out line of credits, like in their house, that they used that vehicle to get us through high school. And we're sitting here just going, how did they pay for it? We don't know. We're just, we're just like waking up and driving ourselves to school, like, like nothing, like no care in the world. And meanwhile, our parents are, pulling out lines of credits or refining to pull out money for us to go to these schools. Yeah. So, you think about, well, if they didn't have real estate, would they have been able to go to these high schools? Would we still have had the same life? I don't know. Like none of us really know. Like if the only way we were able to afford high school, which if it wasn't public at the time, clearly, was through these, investments that drove equity into pockets that were able to then pay for school, where would we have been? Like, would we have had the same sports bring up? Would we have had the same, mentality? Like, it could have been better, right? Or it could have been worse. So it's just one of those things that you look back and you are grateful for the journey, and you try to take it all in and be so thankful for everything that's happened and how far you've come. But it is kind of difficult sometimes realizing how you got here as a kid, like, right? Like 31 years, I'm 30, or I just turned 32. So I'm like 31 years. I'm like, man, for about 25 of those, I had somebody helping me through that. Like, I'm like, I had to get like a crutch, like you don't even really think about how much gratitude is in every single one of those years that you could think back on, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of what, as I've joined like the Builders of Authority, gone to your events, like the gratitude that comes out in like your speakers, in the group, the support, all that type of stuff, it's priceless, man. Like it really does. And it drives me, like, I can't believe I'm even sitting here talking to you.
Yeah.
And I can't believe I'm talking like this. Like I've had so much in me.
Yeah.
I just haven't been able to express it because I haven't had individuals like yourself pull it out of me. And that's what has really inspired me to continue to do this. And it's uncomfortable, man.
Yeah.
Like sitting here, it's uncomfortable. Like I don't like talking, really. I mean, I really don't, as much as I do.
Yeah.
Like it's one of those things, right?
Yeah.
You got to just get comfortable with it. And then all of a sudden it becomes really fun. And the challenge is like getting to that comfortable stage. So you're like trying to get there and I'm sitting here just pushing through this conversation, right? And I'm like, there's stuff where I'm still learning on the go. And like you said, we're never going to get there, right?
Yeah, we're always learning. Yeah. So what's it been like working with your dad?
It's got its pros and its cons. I say sometimes it's definitely hurt my accountability. And that's part of the reason why I've joined Builders of Authority. It's a very accountable group. Just like today, or when was it? Yesterday, we had our meeting yesterday, and people are holding people accountable. Like the magic happens when people share, right? Yeah. And that's what you've created. You've created a community where people are sharing stuff. And when you're sitting there, it's like, it's kind of like good teams, right? What is it? Good teams are led by coaches, and elite teams are led by the players, right? So when you have those players in the game,
makes it easier.
We're rocking and rolling. We're creating magic, and it really does work. Like it's changed my life.
Yeah, because I was always wondering, like, if I was just thinking, like, even when I had my dad on the podcast, I'm like, I don't know how we would work together. And so, like, I'm always interested to know the dynamic as well. Because, like, I do see it as what you mentioned is you do lack some of that accountability, because there is that, like, fine line of, like, okay, hey, we have to wear different hats at different times. We're business partners, or, I'm basically reporting to him, but he's also my dad, he's also my mentor. And so how is it trying to shift and wear those different hats at different times?
That's a great question, Adam, because that is difficult. He's a grandpa too. And you got kid, and I'm sure you're going to have another one. It's just like he becomes my boss, then he becomes grandpa, then he becomes dad. Like, so it is hard not only from his standpoint, but from my standpoint, from us to sometimes, like, I'll see him and I'll be like, I should be really grateful that I'm seeing him. Yeah. But like, we're going through some, like Beryl just rolled through, right? Yeah. Everything was affected through Beryl. Like all of our closings that day, there was water in a basement. Like, when you go from super dry weather to super wet like that, it's, this clay soil expands and contracts. So you're bound to get moisture in basements. And so it delayed all of our closings. And so like, here we're, in grandpa mode. And then next thing we're like, we got to put on our different hat. And now I'm like, oh, now I don't even want to look at you, because now we got to deal with problems instead of fun. Right. So it is hard to kind of transition hats, but I think at the same time, it's also strengthened my relationship. And like I said, that gratitude for him, because he sacrificed a lot for me. And so I never really realized that almost until just like recently. Like I said, the last 31 years, I'm like, shoot, like all these people have supported me and helped me. Like, I got to say thank you. Like, right? Like, what am I doing? Like, if I don't thank these people, it's just like how now you've come to me and you've pulled stuff out of me. Like, I am so thankful to you for doing that. Like, that is so important to me, because the way my human development is, I have to be, unfortunately, asked to do stuff.
I'm the same way.
Yeah. And so like when I get approached, like when you approach me and you go, hey, you want to be on my podcast? I was like, let's go. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I was pumped, because at the same time I knew it was going to be uncomfortable. Yeah. But like, I knew I was going to grow on this. Like, and that was part of it. But yeah, no, wearing multiple hats with my dad and my father, that is difficult. But I try to, we try to be as civil as possible, but yeah, we're going to get into it. Like, I mean, we're going to have our disagreements because, there's certain aspects of the business where I have taken it and, he's got an old school mentality, right?
Mm-hmm.
He cherishes beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one thing I'm trying to change with all of us. Like, hey, cherishing beliefs is just doing us a disservice, right? So we got to pivot.
Yeah.
We got to do stuff different. And I've been able, luckily he's given me the reins to do that. So I have, I've changed our name. I've changed our branding. There's different stuff that I have been able to change.
Yeah.
And I think it's also now helping with him, and it's bringing more business, not just for me, but for him, because he's kind of now bouncing back off of me.
Yeah.
In a way,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Because I'm building trust with people. So then they're like, okay, well, this guy, Brad, built trust with Blake, and Blake built trust with Brad. Now Blake's building trust with all these people. So Brad must be trustworthy.
Yeah.
And he is. He's a very trustworthy individual. And that's kind of the process of how we built trust. And I don't really talk about our business very often because I joke, like, nobody likes a real estate. Like it's just like, oh, when people go, hey, what do you do for a living? I'm like, oh, I'm in real estate. And then they just walk, they're like, okay, yeah. We're at St. Louis. I know way too many of those people. I'm running away. And I'm like, no, I'll tell you, I got a lot of value. I promise. Like, I'm not gonna sell you something. I'm gonna educate you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, it is tough being a real estate agent and learning from your dad and him being grandpa and all these dynamics that are constantly moving. It almost felt like I was trying to survive every day. And then I'm like, you made it this far. You did have help, but you can do it yourself. Like you have it in you.
Yeah.
It's just, you got to get it pulled out. And luckily you have people like yourself that have pulled it out in me. And here I am talking and telling my future. And there's been so many more opportunities that all of a sudden within like the last 30 days, people are approaching me.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was chasing things, running from problems. Now I'm just sitting here, doing my thing, acting like myself.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And things start to come to me. I'm like, how does this work?
Yeah.
And it's all about, learning from you and learning how the mindset game right here.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of my big thing when I joined these groups, and I wasn't more so like trying to sell my business. I wanted to improve my life because I knew if I improved my life and my mental side of things and my gratitude, everything else just falls into place. And I finally understood that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I don't have to be perfect. I don't have to seek approval through everybody, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you've done the same thing. And that's what's been so impressive. I've watched you for, numerous years. I don't know why it took me so long to finally figure this out.
Yeah.
Because I joke, I'm like, man, I had my 20s, I could have figured this out. But hey, I'm glad that I finally did, right?
Yeah,
and here I am.
Some people literally never figure it out. And so it's whenever it happens, And I think exactly what you just said, like, whether it's like we were on our call yesterday, I was training on like being a member in Facebook groups, whether it's that or it's a group like Builders of Authority where I've paid to go into. Like I've paid anywhere from a couple $100, although I've paid $5,000 a month to be in those types of groups before. And from there, it's always about how can I become a better person, husband, now father, business owner, individual, and then provide value to other people. And when I've leveled up myself, the business comes. Like that's just what happens, right? When you go into those groups and you need something from those groups, even though you're paying, like you need business, you need ROI, you need tangible stuff. That's when people are super unfulfilled and they don't get what they want out of it.
You're exactly right. And the whole fulfillment part, you like I said, like the whole money doesn't bring happiness thing is totally true. And talking about in those Facebook groups, like one thing I did tell you, I was like, hey, what about business pages? And you immediately responded like with a perfect answer about why no, certain people should have business pages and certain people should have Google pages or both or YouTube and so forth. But circling back to your question, like, and what you're saying, like, I think in terms of like, basically as a recovering people pleaser, I have trouble staying, just like here, I have trouble staying on thought. Perfect. Like I start to think like immediately I have these little forces right here and a force right here. And they like to clash, right? Like, am I saying the right thing? Am I doing the right thing? And then I go, oh crap, you're in the middle of a podcast, right? So I'm constantly trying to rearrange my brain. And it shows sometimes, like just right there, I just went on I was just blanked because I'm like, oh my gosh, like sometimes I'll retreat a little bit, but then I got to pull myself back out. Right.
Yeah.
So stuff like that is it is difficult, but to have the support like that you and the groups it's
I think you're
impactful.
stepping because, like, obviously, like I've seen your stuff on Facebook for a while as well, and obviously from a distance now, even more over the last couple months. But when you and I first started chatting back and forth, was it, I don't know, 6, 8, 9 months, a year ago? I see your confidence rise, right? Like I see you becoming who you knew you always were, but lacked something. And I think even just kind of reiterating what you were just talking about, like, as you do more podcasts, as you start speaking, as you do more stuff, right, you are going to be that much more comfortable in doing it. And sometimes I was just talking with Dallas, who was on here before, he was at the event, and he was talking about the two different speaking talks he's given. He's like, one I way over prepared and one I under prepared. And I was like, man, like at some point, like over preparation is too much. You got to show up and be yourself. But like, that didn't happen for me until I was like 75 podcast episodes in, to where I really felt like I do have these notes right here, but it's really just to read the beginning and the end. It's not all these different things, because the flow of the conversation happens in a different way. And we want to pick up on things that are happening in person, right? Like you can't go from a script and pretend that it's super authentic. You just have to show up and be yourself.
Yeah. And that's kind of, you're right. Like you can't prepare for, like I have notes down and you have notes, but like you're saying, just the high level. Speaking of which, high level, I was like, how is this dude creating these websites? Yeah. I'm like, wait a minute. I'm like, he just created this Orange County lights website. I'm like, how did he just do that? And then he's over here creating you're creating like another, windshield one. And like, now you're creating a real estate leads. And I'm like, wait a minute. How's this guy doing it? I'm like, all through high level, isn't it? I'm like, oh. Yeah. So I'm like, man, that's powerful stuff right there. And then it even got me sitting there. I'm on my phone, like, right, making a logo, Lights of the Lou. I'm like, here I am, like, hey, if anybody could do it, you're just, you're running these, ads and these, what are they, SEO? What do you call them? SEOs and stuff. So I can't, to be honest, like, it is so hard to keep up with all your stuff. Because you have so many moving parts. Mm-hmm. As much as I try to, I could be like, okay, he runs Builders of Authority. He runs windshields. He's built businesses. He'll figure out if you want Christmas lights. Now he's in Orange County too. So if you want to go to California and put on Christmas lights, which
you want to know the secret to all of it?
What?
You find the who to do the how. I've never put on a windshield. I've never done Christmas lights. I've never done any of that. So those are more like partnerships that I have. But I build the site, I build the real estate, and then I build my piece into the equity of the company of like, hey, we're building this thing separate from it, and I stay out. So like Builders of Authority is all of my attention with a couple other things like here and there, but it kind of all feeds into the top.
So when you're saying you got portions of, you build it out and then you got somebody else doing the work, mm-hmm. but you're doing all the behind the scenes.
Yeah. So like the Auto Glass company is an anomaly because I did build that site, started ranking it. It was generating about 400 leads a month, and I decided to go start that company. So I owned 100% of that company. I went and found some random dude that like did auto detailing, sent him across the country to go get trained on Auto Glass, and dealt with all of the shit. Lost like $60,000 our first year in 2021. And even though we were generating hundreds and hundreds of leads a month, like we never should have lost money. But I didn't know how to run an Auto Glass company, and I was also running a landscape design business, and I was also running the marketing company. So that company now is ran primarily by my uncle and his girlfriend. So they bought into it. So then that way I'm just focusing on the marketing and advertising, not trying to run an Auto Glass business. With the Christmas lights of St. Louis one, I built this thing, already ranked to the first page of Google. Dallas, who was just in here, was at our event. His company is going to fulfill the leads, but we have this separate entity that I'm getting a piece of the pie in. Know a guy out in Orange County that I met at an event 2 months ago, same thing.
Well, I'll tell you what, passive income guru right here.
Trying to get
this
there,
guy,
man.
Yeah, I mean, you create this, and then obviously your goal as I'm listening to this is passive income. And that's what that stuff just keeps rolling in. You don't have to check your bank account for that because it just keeps coming in there. So no, it's just like our profit share of our old brokerage that they try to take that away. And I'm like, no, we're not. We get that. So we fought for that, and it's just it's passive income. You don't want to lose that passive income.
No.
You want multiple streams of passive
true.
income. And I see that you're building all these websites, and I'm like, man, there's a stream of income. There's a stream of income. There's a stream of income. I'm like, you have enough streams of income, like you say, it meets at the top. You're gonna have a nice little purse up there.
That's what we're building, man. That's what we're building. So I want to transition a little bit here, talking about the brand, because obviously, like, you and your dad built the brand. You're the third generation. You're all these different things. You obviously, as you mentioned before, get a ton of referrals, repeat business. You know, parents that are you guys have worked with in the past are now probably sending their kids to you. All those different things. Like, so how have you guys not only built the brand but continued to level up the brand?
Yeah, so that's another great question. The generational thing is true. Like, so, you sell like your friend's parents a house, then you sell your friend a house, then, you sell your friend's brother's house, then the brother has a sister-in-law that you sell their house. So it's a constant cycle of trust. So when you build it with one person, the next person's going to tell the next person about how great of an experience it was, how much value you brought. So that's how we've kind of continued that. And like I joke, we don't pay for leads. Everything is word of mouth. We do brand ourselves in Kirkwood. That is like our brand. Like you're saying, there's one place to brand yourself, and that is Kirkwood, just because nobody sold more houses in Kirkwood than we have since you go back to 1999. So that type of stuff is really cool. But to figure out how to, pivot and in a market where, you do have a very saturated market of individuals where, you have your aunt's uncle Joe that sells houses, and people don't really understand the value that goes into it. And that's what I've been trying to change over the course as we go through these families and these cycles of generations from the parent to the kid. Like, hey, I want to bring more value than I did, or than that was brought to the parents, right? Because if you just keep on the same cycle of this, it's just like, well, how are you going to differentiate yourself from the next person? So that's my biggest thing, is like, how can I continue to provide value? Coming on here, I'm providing value in my, business, because I'm able to educate. People are able to see me on a video, on a podcast, and listen to me and talk. And now I'm building trust with individuals, right? That's what it's all about. And everything else falls into place. And I've learned that, like, I don't have to please everyone. Just be yourself, follow your business, follow your core values, and everything else will just fall into place. And it really has. Like, my marriage has gotten better. Everything just has gotten better. Like, and it's just simply a mindset game. And, but continuing to transition in the business, like, you do have to have financial pivots, because if you don't, you're not going to have options. And just because I talk about this happiness thing and money doesn't buy happiness, doesn't mean I don't want money. Right. Like, I mean, of course I have both. Yeah, you got to have both. Yeah. And so in order to continue the value and to continue to get paid, as stuff's about to change here with, I'm sure numerous people have heard about the lawsuit with National Association of Realtors, basically talking about the commissions. And so, like, going forth and starting like August, I think it's like 17th, we have new forms. So now, technically, you are supposed to have a buyer's agency contract signed prior to seeing a house, and there's no longer going to be a payout. So that seller on that side no longer has to say in the MLS, hey, I'm going to pay you 2%, or I'm going to pay you 2.5%. That's gone. So now people are going to have to say, well, I'm going to have to maybe pay my buyer's agent some. So you're like, well, wait a minute. Either that, or you're going to go straight to the listing agent, right? So we do both. I'm like, we have listings and we have a lot of value as a buyer's agent side of things. So I'm like trying to basically eliminate both avenues, so that if they go this way, they run into me. They go this way, they run into me, right? Yeah. So that's kind of it. But it is going to be difficult. It's going to be a change for a lot of people, because in order for somebody to approach somebody and say, hey, you got to sign this and agree to pay me X amount when you buy a house because I'm valued at that, is going to be difficult for people to understand.
Yeah.
Now it doesn't mean you can't go get it from the seller.
Mhm.
Like that's still possible, but it's going to have to be more
strategic.
Yeah, more strategic, more negotiated. You're going to have to negotiate your own commission. It's not going to be the seller and the listing agent deciding where you're going to get, and you just plug it in. You're going to have to decide your worth now, and it's going to put a whole new twist into the game, and it's going to be fun.
I mean, it's going to eliminate a lot of people that shouldn't be in the industry anyway, as with any big change like that.
Yeah. COVID did that too. And, like they say, in every industry, you got 20% of the individuals doing 80% of the business. And that is spot on in real estate. Like, you can do it part-time and, have a side hustle, which I think it's awesome. If you're going to do real estate part-time, have a side hustle, join a team though. Like have the support system. You're not going to be able to do this on your own. And go through all this transactional stuff and just think you're going to get paid. Like it's not like that. Like there's so many, just like I was saying the other day, when you don't think Beryl just was going to roll through, and then here you are taking a shop vac in a basement, and another person sending you a picture of a 3 foot of water up against a basement door in a city house, because the city's all interconnected and that type of stuff. So that gets overwhelmed. So there's certain things, the problems, like I didn't know I was going to wake up to that, right?
Yeah.
Who would think a week before closing, it's way over the Gulf of Mexico, this it's a hurricane that's going to come, 5 days later up through the middle of the country and just affect us when we haven't had rain in, weeks. And then all of a sudden we get 4 or 5 inches, and it's
crazy.
Yeah. Through a rut and a lot of things, but we figured it out, right? You got to pivot. You got to figure, you're not going to be able to do anything unless you figure it out.
Yeah.
So, that's what we do. And we solve problems and find solutions, and, you can't panic. You just gotta, whatever happens is happening, and you got to figure out how to figure it out, right? And you got to solve it.
That's the name of the game, man. People that solve a lot of problems and bring a lot of solutions make the most money. How it always goes.
It's value, right?
Yeah.
So and that's another thing. Like when I was at the Builders of Authority event, I'm like looking at these speakers, and I'm going, you're not going to get a lineup like this very often. Like I'm like, how did he pull this off at such a affordable price for us all to sit there? I'm like, these guys care about advancing individuals' lives. It's not just about money. Like that's what really sold me with your community of people, is that it's not money driven. Money is a factor that comes with everything else, right?
Yep.
Once you figure everything else out, the pieces just start to come into place. And I've started to understand that no longer people pleasing, have to put myself first. Someone asked me today, they go, what's something you're working on? I go, being selfish.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, wait, Blake just said he's going to be selfish? Like, I'm like, yeah, because I was never giving you my best self, right? I did not have myself figured out. Therefore, I was never giving you my best self. Yeah. Now I'm figuring myself out, and people like yourself are able to pull the best out of me, and I'm able to give it to you through this podcast or through my business or through my, through charity cause, which is another thing. I'm big on cause. So there's so many different things that, like, I was so asleep at the wheel to say, like, it's unfortunate that it took me this long, but I'm so happy, like, that I'm like here, and I'm pumped, man. Like, life, you got one life, right? Like, here I am just going on a tangent. Like, I just love life now. Like, I love the journey, and I didn't prior to that. I woke up and I'm like, oh, it's painful to open my eyes. Now I'm like, let's roll. Yeah. Like, come on, right?
Dude, it's exciting, man. And I'm excited to see what you continue to do. You're already doing amazing stuff. I'm grateful we got reconnected and are doing life together now, man. So this has been an incredible episode. We're going to have to do another one because I'm just excited to see the progress you make over the next 3 and 6 months and things like that. So before we finish up, man, where can people stay connected with you?
Yeah, so go to Facebook, Blake Elsner. I'm big on branding myself, thanks to Adam. So I'm big on branding myself, and once you realize who I am and what I bring to the table, then you're like, oh, I want to work with that guy.
Yep.
Because that's how it works. That's just the human nature of people. So yeah, that's where you can find me on Facebook. You could also go, we have a website, bradagent.com. It's got me on there. It's got my father. I got to change that domain. Don't worry, I will. But yeah, but mostly you're going to find all my stuff on my personal page on Facebook. I'm big on there. You know, I'm now sharing a lot of stuff that I wouldn't usually share. And I do have a lot of information, a lot of valuable stuff that I've never shared with people because I've always been scared of the backlash, the people pleasing, the you know, what are people going to think about this if I share this? Like, what if I share my problems? What if I tell people I have an issue? Like, what are people going to think of me? Well, guess what? I don't care anymore. Because if I'm true to myself, I feel so much more free. Like, yeah, I definitely was drinking too much. 100%. I went through IVF with my wife. Like, I was drinking. I was having to put a shot in her. Why was I drinking? Because I thought I was helping myself get through that pain of putting that shot into her, right? So I would drink to help me get through that. And then I'm like, well, that's not right. That's not the healthy way to do it. And I'm, you know, following you. And I'm like, look at this guy. He's doing it the right way. I got to follow this. And that's when I figured it out, man. And that's why I'm blessed to be here, blessed to be on this podcast. And I can't wait to be here again.
Well, thanks, man. This is incredible. We'll put all that stuff in the show notes, and always great chatting with you, and appreciate your time, man.
Thanks, brother.
And thank you again to our amazing title sponsor, Go High Level. Without them, we aren't able to produce the quality of content or have amazing guests on like we did today with Blake. Check out a free and extended 30-day trial in the show notes. Make sure to leave us a 5-star review as well. We're making a big push for reviews this year, and it definitely helps move the needle. And remember, authority isn't built overnight, it's built over time.
Thanks so much for tuning into this episode. We sure do appreciate it. If you haven't done so already, make sure you're subscribed to the show wherever you consume podcasts. This way you'll get notifications as new episodes become available. If you feel so inclined, please leave us a review. We sure do appreciate it. Until next time, friends.